Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming here tonight to hear Kwame Mbalia discuss his new book, Last Gate of the Emperor, The Royal Trials. I'm Morella, the event and social media coordinator, and I just want to say thank you so much for supporting your local indie. We are recording tonight's event to make it more accessible to our community. And I do ask Kwame that he concludes by 7 p.m. because we are closing up the store and we have to be mindful of our fellow people. Kwame Mbalia is a husband, father, writer, a New York Times best-selling author, and a former pharmaceutical metrologist in that order. His debut middle grade novel, Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky, was awarded a Coretta Scott King Author Honor, and it, along with the sequels, Tristan Strong Destroys the World and Tristan Strong Keeps Punching, is published by Rick Riordan Presents Disney Hyperion. He is a co-author of Last Gate of the Emperor, nice one, with Prince Joe McConnell from Flyleaf Books. He is a Howard University graduate and a Midwesterner now in North Carolina. He survives on dad jokes and cheeses.
See, cheeses are even in the bio. That's why. Oh, is it getting to throw? That's a hazard. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much to Flyleaf for hosting this wonderful venue and allowing us to gather to celebrate books, which is like one of my favorite things ever. If you've ever been to or attended one of my school visits, I start every visit, whether it's a bookstore or a school visit, with a reading. And so I have a volunteer. We're gonna read from book one. You have book one? Okay. You can stay right there if you want. Can I borrow book one for you? All right, you are going to be, we're starting at the very beginning, audio transcript file number 2132.019. Do you want to be Yared or the auditor?
I'm fine with either.
How is your growling, raspy auditor voice?
Awful.
Awful, okay. How is your impudent, snarky, 12-year-old voice?
Good.
Good? Okay. You will be the auditor, and I will be... No, you can be Yared, me, and I will be the auditor. Okay? So I'll read the introduction in my robot voice. Audio transcript file number 2132.019. Location, undisclosed detention facility. Time 0045. Subject, Yared. Last name redacted for security. Now then, start from the beginning. Again, for the third time. State your name for the audio file. Now I'm gonna need you to put some snark into that. So you're 6th grade, and this is, you're on your way to detention.
Yared.
Your full name.
Yared.
Redacted.
Listen, I didn't name myself. If I did, my last name would be The Crate. One word and a number. I even tried to change my name at school. They wouldn't let me. Ask them.
We have. Speaking of, we pulled your school records and...
Perfect, right? Stellar student, incredibly smart, with tons of potential.
You barely attend class.
What? No way. I go to class all the time. Right there at
Addis Prime Primary.
Exactly. Addis Prime Primary. Good old AP squared. That's what we call it for short. AP squared.
Enough of these games, boy. You will start telling us everything you know.
Oh, that's easy. I've gotten top marks in the class. My history teacher said my presentation was It was absolutely incredible. If not for the weird creature that nearly destroyed half the city, my presentation would have been the most exciting thing to happen all day.
Finally, let's talk about that.
The presentation? Gladly.
No, the monster!
It started like this.
And that's where chapter 1 opens. Thank you. Can we give a hand for Yara, our snarky main character? Fantastic. So just a spoiler-free recap. All right? How do I talk about the sequel and not spoil book 1? All right. You can. I'm just gonna be honest. You can. But we have Yared is, I think everyone in this room, especially if you are in education, library, teacher, you know what Yared. Yared has bounced around schools, never really found out the best way for him to study, the best way for him to learn, lives with his uncle. Uncle works multiple jobs, trying to pay for Yared's tuition to this school. And he reaches at his primary with his trusty, lovable sidekick, Besa, which is a bionic lioness. Really cool. Also have a little bit of an attitude that's, for them to work out between each other. And Yared loves video games. Loves video games. Cannot do anything without thinking about his video games. His favorite video game is The Hunt for Caleb's Obelisk. An obelisk is a column structure with a pyramid at the top. You will see it. It's actually on the title. It's a little black structure next to the Last Gate of the Emperor title. And so Caleb, actually, fun side fact, was actually a king of the ancient, in real life, was an actual king of the ancient kingdom of Axum. And an obelisk was normally used to mark a royal grave, right? No one knows where Caleb's obelisk is, like in real life. No one knows where it is. There's, through invasion, colonization, a bunch of different reasons, we don't know where Caleb's obelisk is. And so we use that for part of the inspiration of the game. We have to find this object. It's pretty cool. It's a battle royale type of game. If you've played, Fall Guys or Apex or, Fortnite or anything like that, you know what a battle royale type video game is. That's Yared's favorite game, except one day he goes to log in and normally he puts in Yared the Great and it works. Well, this time it doesn't. And so he has to put in his full name, Yared Haywat, and it triggers an alarm. And all of a sudden, characters and creatures and people that his uncle used to tell him just stories, fanciful stories, fictional stories about, start chasing him. And he has to figure out what's going on. The only problem is the one person he would go to for help, his uncle, is missing. So Yared has to find his uncle, figure out why he's being chased, and what did he actually set in motion when he put his credentials into the video game. All right? I don't know if he finds his uncle or not. I'm not going to spoil it for you. I don't know if his uncle shows up in book 2. We're just going to assume, we don't know. But so book 2 picks up, and again, I'm going to stay pretty spoiler free. But I'm going to do something that I rarely do, and I can do it because I designed the book this way when I was talking with Yoel. I am going to actually read an excerpt from the middle of the book. And it is about, the reason that this is important is I just explained to you who Yared was, how he grew up, where he bounced around, who he grew up with. In this book, Yared has parents, Yared has his uncle, he has his bionic lioness, but it's a flashback, so we don't know when this occurs kind of in the timeline, okay? That's why it's not a spoiler. All right, so we're going to start with a, I don't know what you call this. It's a cast stream. If you watch video games, listen, I am very fond of video games. If you're in the video game industry at all or any around it, actually something just passed called ALGS, which is a gaming tournament for Apex Legends. And the way that you broadcast it is the way that you would broadcast a football, a baseball, a soccer, a volleyball game. You have two people in the booth. We call that a cast, short for broadcast. And so we're going to start with an excerpt of a broadcast from the next evolved edition of the Hunt for Caleb's Obelisk called The Royal Trials. I gotta do my amped up broadcast to, like a teenage nerdy Marv Albert voice. Welcome to another incredible edition of Epicast, cast. Coming to you live from our Hollow Stream studio in the Jupiter Colony Academy. We have to again give another big shout out to our partners at AR Glasses, the definitive source for augmented reality glasses this side of the nebula. And now, let's jump into some questions. Hello, welcome to the stream. What's your name and what's your question?
Hi, Nero. My name's Jesse, and I was wondering how they're choosing the arenas for the different match types. Thanks, woo!
Great question, Jesse. Perfect time to cut away to a flyover. Get ready, folks. The opening round of the Royal Trials is here, and with it, the debut of the galaxy's most anticipated new edition, Control. 20 bases, 64 players, tons of chaos. And with that many players, you just knew new maps had to happen too, right? This round is being played at the newly constructed Titan Arena, a recreation of a low orbital farm circling Jupiter's largest moon. Players will have to navigate craters the size of lakes, massive dunes, and mysterious ruins left from an abandoned terraforming project. As this is the first round, the location was selected by game officials. The next arena, however, will be chosen by the highest ranking team at the end of the game. And you know the stakes, folks. Points are scored for occupying bases, but bonus points can be earned for taking out opposing players. The top players with the highest point totals at the end of the game move on to the next round, while the lower half are going home. So cheer on your phase, folks, and be sure to link with the Epicast Hollow feed if you want up to the second updates on the Royal Trials. It looks, folks, we're moments away from starting the opening round. We'll see you afterwards right here on Epicast. I do those sound effects myself, by the way. This isn't automated. The family that trains together remains together. That was Mom's favorite thing to say when she'd have Besa drag me out of bed at 4:00 ST. That's 4 o'clock standard time. That's pretty close to 3 a.m. when you'll be getting up to go to the airport, Jack. During the last few months on Haraj Station, she'd shove a juice bulb in my hand and then take me to the training simulator, where adults would be loud for no reason. I'm talking everyone was shouting so loud, the neighbors in the next star system over could probably hear it. Dad, Mom, Uncle Modi, even Besa. The training lasted for nearly an hour. And you know what? I've never seen anyone get under Uncle Modi's skin the way my dad did. Come on, General, my dad taunted. The Emperor fainted with the long stick he carried, what he called a quarterstaff, and I called unfair, and what Besa called a chew toy, and skipped back when Uncle Modi tried to bat it aside with his own weapon. Leader of the Burning Legion, fierce defender of the Crown Prince and Heir, sole operator of the Holotainment Center, show us your moves. Wait, did I mention we were actually fighting? Not exo training or flight training, fighting. Apparently it was a family tradition now. And now that we were all together, every other week, Uncle Modi and Dad and Mom and I would head to one of the Machinatai training modules and battle it out for bragging rights. And sometimes extra sambusa, let's be honest. Sambusa is delicious, all right? Every culture, I think, a lot of cultures have like the pie crust covered savory snack item that it's easily transportable. Sambusa, Ethiopian, I think mine's favorite is the veggie. What's your favorite? Veggie? Veggie?
Is that with the really hot stuff on?
No, I don't think there's, can you get them spicy?
Yeah, it can have a little kick, but not all of them do.
They're delicious, is what they are. And afterwards, I'm gonna get your favorite place to eat, because mine is like 2-hour drive away.
Oh, you do better.
Okay.
Oh.
I had just gotten finished working out with Besa, and I was off my game. It happens to the best. None of my attacks landed on her, and she wasn't even in full guardian mode. So they made the two of us take a break, and meanwhile, 2 out of the top 3 warriors in Axum sparred with each other. In case you're wondering, Dad and Uncle Modi said Mom was better than both of them. They were sparring for a chance to challenge her to a match. It was incredible to watch Dad and Uncle Modi fight. I mean, I knew Uncle Modi was good. He'd worked with me all the time. But what I didn't know was how good he was when he was truly challenged, when he turned into General Modi Barrel. And that's when he really got loose. And Dad was no pushover either. He sent attack after attack at Uncle Modi, swiping left and right, spinning his staff with a flourish as he tried to get past his opponent's defenses, talking trash the whole time. Surely Axum's greatest hero, my own former combat tutor, can defeat his old student. Dad lunged forward, then backpedaled when Uncle Modi parried and feinted. Or did you teach a certain prince too much? I grinned. Now I knew where I got my swagger from. When I glanced at Mom, she was leaning on her own quarterstaff and rolling her eyes. She wasn't even concerned that either of them might get hurt. In fact, she met my gaze and winked, then pointed at the 2 men as if to say, watch closely. Dad sent attack after attack at Uncle Modi, and I got a little worried. Uncle Modi wasn't doing anything other than dodging and retreating. Where was the offense? Had he lost a step? Finally, Dad launched a blistering attack. I'm talking left, right, head, feet. His quarterstaff was everywhere. Even Besa looked concerned. Uncle Modi kept backing up, kept his guard up, but never tried to respond. Dad jumped high in the air, so high I held my breath, landing with a 2-handed power attack that would have crushed a bonehead it landed. Except Uncle Modi wasn't there. Flick! Dad's staff went flying across the training room. Flick! Dad tumbled to the floor. Whoosh! The tip of Uncle Modi's staff hovered, perfectly still, inches from Dad's throat. No one moved. I held my breath. Then Uncle Modi's lips quivered and Dad's cheeks ballooned out, and the two collapsed into helpless laughter. I looked over at Mom, and she, again, rolled her eyes and muttered something under her breath that sounded suspiciously like grown children. Yared, Dad called after taking a moment to regain his breath. What lesson can you take from this? I groaned. I should have known. There was always a lesson somewhere. Those things were everywhere, like flies, huge flies, with mustaches, because why not? Don't jump and attack, I guess. Dad laughed and clapped Uncle Modi on the shoulder, who was also chuckling. That is probably the second most important lesson, I'll grant you, especially against someone as skilled as this man. No, there's another lesson here, and the general just demonstrated it beautifully. Modi. Uncle Modi stood, offered an arm, and helped the Emperor of Axum to his feet. Then he walked over to me and rested a hand on my shoulder. Patience. You must not let yourself get rattled when facing an opponent of unknown strength, or someone who just seems to have your number on a particular day. Wait, watch, observe, learn, and when it's time, the quarterstaff whipped off the ground, twirled in the air, and landed perfectly vertical behind Uncle Modi's back as he caught it and dropped into his fighting stance. Strike. It was so important for me to write that section of the book because a lot of books, especially a lot of middle grade, a lot of fantasy, a lot of adventure books, we don't see, usually, I won't say 100% of the time, we don't see the parents in the story, right? We don't see the guardians in the story. It's just, there's a kid, maybe he's with his friends and he's on an adventure, might run into a mentor or something, but it's really just them figuring it out. And with how the previous book unfolded with Yared, again, on his own, I thought it was important to write a scene where it's still fun, still banter, snark, still, a little adventure in there, but for them to do it as a family. One of my questions that I'll have later that I'm gonna kind of answer right now is I love family adventures. And it's really something that has only started, I think, once I had my own family, right? And I just couldn't stand the idea of like one of my kids being lost, having to find their way, no one to help them, having to try and figure things out. I mean, yeah, are they independent? Sure, but I want to be there to help them if they need it, right? Oh my gosh, Lost in Space, I want to say the series is called, recently rebooted to Netflix. This idea of a family lost on an adventure, each with their own, individual challenges and everything that they have to face, but they do it together, right? They may split off from time to time, they may have their own trials and tribulations, but they come back together because they survive and they work together. I'm just getting really sentimental at my old age. It's really sad. Anything with a grizzled old person and a small tiny, I just call them small tinies, it's instantly, a tearjerker, best show ever. So, Mandalorian, listen, the first episode where you just see Baby Yoda's hand come up, I threw my laptop that I was watching it on. I threw it, I launched it. I was like, this is the best show ever. And I had nothing to watch my show on, so. But I thought it was really important to have that moment that showed the connection, that showed the family. As you read the book, and as you understand what the Empire of Axum and what this particular family and what Yarick himself will eventually go through, I thought it was important to show, I know it's not a quiet moment necessarily, but it is an intimate family moment and still action-packed and filled with, I think it's action-packed and filled with fun. So I gave you all homework before the event started about what was your favorite video game, what was your favorite space adventure, and what was your favorite kind of giant robot that you could pilot, that you could sit in. Not just a giant robot, you have to be able to sit in it. Movie, show, media property, right? So we're gonna talk about that a little bit because we're gonna talk about the inspiration for the Royal Childs and the Last Gate as well as a whole, okay? And then, because we want to get you out of here at 7, I think we'll do maybe 15 to 20 minutes of that, and then we'll do some Q&A. And if you have questions throughout that kind of relate to what we're talking about, feel free, let me know, and we can jump right into it there. I am the type of person, I can run off at the mouth. I'm very talented at that. If I could get paid for that, you would never see me again because I'm by an island somewhere. I can run off at the mouth, but I prefer to engage because I think that's where community is really built, okay? So, let's start with, what do I want to start with? Let's start with space adventures, okay? Because I mentioned Lost in Space. Does anyone out there have a favorite or a space adventure that they really, really enjoy? What do you got? Star Wars. It's such a giant property right now. Which episode or series or just in general? Episode 3, that is Revenge of the Sith. Okay, is that that's like the, is that the darkest Star Wars? That's a pretty dark Star Wars movie. All right, we're gonna talk afterwards. We're gonna talk because you're Padawan age, and listen. We have questions here. Star Wars: Revenge of the Sith. Who's your favorite character there? You got Anakin. You got Obi-Wan. You got Anakin. So, just me as a person, I love tragedies. Tragedies are some of my favorite Shakespearean plays. Stories where they don't make it, but there is something to be gained from the journey that they go through, whether it's for someone else to learn or for them to eventually realize at the end. One of my favorite Star Wars movies, kind of related to that, is Rogue One, right? This is how you know you have a great story or great storytelling, right? We know the outcome of Rogue One before we even watch the movie, right? We know that they don't survive. We've known that for decades, right? We know that they don't make it out, but the journey and the characters that go on that journey is what makes it really, relevant and sentimental to me. Same thing with Anakin's story. We've known since episode 1 with the pod racing where Anakin was going to go. We knew what his trajectory was, and yet we still rooted for him as a character. And so, as someone who loves villains and antagonists, yes, Darth Vader has been one of my favorite characters for a long, long time. But to see that transition from, the boy who loved his mother to Darth Vader, like if you hold those up side by side, if you hold up Anakin as a kid with his pod racing and Darth Vader up side by side, and you say these two are the same, everyone except for probably George Lucas would be like, that's ridiculous. You have been eating way too many midichlorians, right? So episode 3, great space adventure from Star Wars. Anyone else? Yeah.
That Fallout 3 DLC called the Mothership.
Fallout 3 DLC called what is Fallout? Explain to the audience in case they don't know, what is Fallout?
Fallout is like a post-nuclear apocalypse, like from after you emerge from the vaults, from either Vault 14, 101, 11. These are the only ones I have.
And what is the Mothership?
The Mothership is like it's like one of the it's like a big UFO where like most of like the smaller UFOs come and I think recharge their batteries. I don't know. And like
it's kind of like the hub. It's like where they come back. Yeah. What can you imagine? Like, how's this for a story, right? You emerge. You emerge from a nuclear fallout shelter, and you're like, man, that has got to be the worst thing that I could have ever gone through, right? And then aliens. I would go back into the fallout shelter. Personally, that's just me. But Fallout is a game about kind of picking up the pieces of what has been left behind. And that's just the series as a whole, right? And the kind of the how does humanity survive, the factions and so on, and where do we go from there? And then you add on this alien downloadable content, this alien, kind of side plot storyline. And it's like, how do we, we couldn't work together when we were at our highest, point in technology, right? As an advanced civilization. And now how are we supposed to, when we have regressed, supposed to confront this alien? I think that's a great question, just to ask and to think about. So, the ELA teacher left, but that's an essay I would love to write. I would love to write an essay about how, Fallout 3, the Mothership DLC, can be used as a representative, explanatory text about how can we work together at our weakest when we can't work together at our strongest, right? All right, other space adventures, anyone? Yes, we're good.
I haven't seen much of it, but so far, season 6 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Season 6, what is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Marvel TV show.
Marvel TV show?
Technically not in the MCU, but
canon is canon.
It's a bunch of these different characters who pick up the pieces of S.H.I.E.L.D. after it falls in Captain America and the Winter Soldier. So they just go through all of this different stuff. It just doesn't seem to end for them. But at this point, they're trying to find one of their friends who's lost in space. So just from the bits and pieces that I've seen of that season, there's just a lot of running around in space right now.
If you like Marvel, the Marvel movies, and if you enjoy, this is before, the cinematic universe started to include things like, WandaVision and Falcon and their episodic content. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was kind of that. It was almost like a trial run for them, and I think it did really well. And so season 6, they have an episode where they're traversing space. So Marvel in space, I think, is, if you're into that sort of thing, it's a great adventure to go on. All right, let's get one more. Yes, in the back.
Halo.
Halo. Another long running. All right. I nearly. This is okay. Should I say this?
Let's do it.
Say that.
Learn from my mistakes. All right. I nearly failed my winter, spring, because the game drops in fall. So yeah, I nearly failed my spring semester of my junior year in college because of Halo. We would just spend I still went to class, but like instead of studying, I would all right, let's go, get a group of friends, land up, and we play some Halo or whatever, right? Great memories, wonderful time. Thankfully, I pulled it together. You can too, by learning good study habits and enforcing routines. But I love Halo. Halo is the first multiplayer game that really captivated my attention, where it was before that, it was all single player, right? So KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic. One of my favorite games was Jade Legacy, which was a Chinese-inspired action-adventure role-playing game that again had the light and no, they called it the open palm and the closed fist, which is how you balance good and evil or whatever. This is BioWare, so this is before. This is after they did KOTOR, but before they did Mass Effect, which is useless information for anyone but me. But Halo introduced the concept to me of they had a single player game, but the fact that I could spend hours of entertainment with friends creating adventures within this defined playfield was absolutely amazing to me. Halo is a story. Actually, I read Ringworld. Are we having any hardcore sci-fi fans in here? Ringworld?
Was a farmer.
It's Niven, I think it's Larry Niven,
Oh, yeah.
who wrote that. Ringworld, tell me if this sounds familiar. Ringworld is a highly advanced ring-shaped planetoid system, civilization, that humanity discovers and they journey to, and they realize that when they land there, that everything isn't what it seems, right? And that's where part of the inspiration for Halo came from. Now, they added all of the aliens and the flood, zombie-like creatures there to just spice it up a little bit. But Halo is an adventure of where humanity is not winning the war in space. Humanity is the least advanced technological civilization to enter space, and they are dealing with the repercussions of, thinking you're at the top of the food chain and realizing there's a shark bigger than you swimming. So again, another, I love stories that explore what we call fallibility, the ability to make mistakes, the realization that you are not perfect, and yet we are still going to strive to do our best. I love those types of stories. All right. Let's talk about, so that's space adventure, and we had some video games sprinkled in there. So I need to talk about mecha, which are the giant pilotable robots. All right. Does anyone in here have a favorite media franchise, where there's a robot that a plucky youngster finds and realizes he's the only one who can pilot this sort of similar, scenario type of story? Let's start in the back and we'll work our way to the front. Voltron. Ooh, that is one we were not tossing around at the beginning. Similar to the Power Rangers, Zord. Was it Megazord? What is it called when they come together? When the Power Rangers come together?
The merge.
It's okay. But yes, Voltron. Lions, right? Were they cats?
Yeah, they were.
They were so they were lions, 5 lions, right? 5 different pilots, different personalities. And then when there was a super bad villain, they came together in some weird way. I still don't understand, because somebody had to be the foot. You know what I mean? Somebody had to, that's just, yeah, I'm part of Voltron. Are you the head? The fist? No, I'm the foot. And there are worse body parts that you could be. Which, I should jot that down as a story idea. Can you imagine being the rear end of a robot? Just I'm the, I make you sit good. I affect your posture. That's horrible. We're gonna edit that out of the video. Voltron, great one. I love that one. Any other?
It's been a while since we watched it, but my sister and I used to live off Power Rangers.
Live off which one?
The one
Yeah, there are
too many. So many.
there are more Power Rangers series than I think years I've been alive.
Whichever one had the one with the giant robot in it.
Yeah, that one.
So you have the original one, yeah. And is it Zordon?
I think it was the original one.
Was it the original one?
I have no idea, but I think it was.
Again, kind of similar situation to Voltron, and you'll see a lot of these because they all kind of gained inspiration from each other in Japan and made it over here and infiltrated. And there's some that didn't come over here that I think were even better than Voltron and Power Rangers. But again, 5 teens, discover or are tasked with saving the world from evil by some giant sentient brain-faced creature who was really creepy as I think about it. Zordon had issues. But again, when they couldn't defeat the evil baddie individually, they joined forces, merged together. And again, you see a lot of this, the themes of joining forces, unity, working together, really reinforcing, which I think is a good thing, reinforcing behavior in a lot of the young adult or kids TV shows or what have you. So we got Voltron, we got Power Rangers. My favorite of which was they were dinosaurs.
Oh, we watched the dinosaurs.
One period of time, and then they were also ninjas at one period. They were a lot of things. Power Rangers really reinvented themselves. They had a lot of crises, midlife crises, and went through it. Yes.
Mine is Samus.
Samus from Metroid.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. We are. Is Samus a robot piloted, or is Samus a woman in power armor? I need a 2-page double-spaced essay. Compare and contrast. This is why I need that ELA teacher back here. If you did a compare and contrast essay assignment on Samus versus, I would write 5 pages if you don't
Let me
have
my
to.
laptop real quick.
Yes.
I think Samus is a person
Mhm.
wearing a robot suit because in Super Smash Bros. There's literally a character called Zero Suit Samus.
With Samus without the suit on.
Yes.
You know what? Fun fact:
There's Samus, Dark Samus. Samus.
Samus is actually the inspiration for the Walia suit that Yard wears in the Royal Trials. You see it there in the cover. The Walia looks taller than Yard right now. It is not as tall as Voltron or the Power Rangers Ultimate Zord Mobile that they traveled in. But I was like, I need something that a kid could reasonably pilot without too much difficulty. And I felt like one person driving a 3-story robot suit would be, I can barely drive a minivan. So asking, Jack or Henry or Desmond to pilot a 3-story robotic behemoth. I believe in you. I believe that you can do it. I'm just saying I wouldn't want to risk the insurance, okay? All right, so we have Samus, we have Voltron, we have Power Rangers. Let's get a couple more. Yeah.
What about something like Pacific Rim?
I was waiting. What are their suits called? I can't remember. I know they drift together. Jaeger, thank you, Desmond. The Jaeger suits in Pacific Rim. Again, another story where they cannot do it alone. In Pacific Rim, if you're not familiar with it, kaiju come, giant monsters emerge from another dimension. They're terrorizing the planet. So we developed these giant Jaeger suits to combat them. Unfortunately, one person cannot do it alone. And we need 2 people. But 2 random people cannot just do it. You have to be what's called drift compatible. That means you have to learn to work together. That's why, brothers, family members, close friends, they were more likely to be drift compatible. But you can imagine, again, humanity is losing the war against these kaiju. We are desperate, we are searching for people, and that's where a hero arises from an unlikely source. I love Pacific Rim. I absolutely adore Pacific Rim. It's one of my favorite both monster movies, mecha movies. Mecha, you know, is the giant pilotable robot series or whatever. So yes, great suggestion. Desmond.
I think like they use like these like machine things.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about in the Jaegers?
Yeah.
Okay.
That like combine their minds on it and they can see like a ton of memories and stuff.
Would you want to see someone else's memories? No. All right, Desmond, I would have loved to have you as a Jaeger pilot. But yeah, so that is something that you have to take into consideration in order to combat these monsters. You have to be drift compatible, which means you have to be able to endure seeing someone else's memories, right? And I'm not just talking about that one time I fell out of the shower and crashed through the shower curtain. You know, yeah, embarrassing. I don't want anybody to see that. I'm talking about some of your most deep, heartfelt, sometimes traumatic, sometimes deeply personal. They don't even have to be sad, they're just deeply personal memories. You have to be willing to share and reveal that in order to save the world. Could you do that? Some people could, some people couldn't. And I think, you know, I don't cast judgment, as if this is a real thing. I don't cast judgment on those who could not do so. Great addition, Desmond. Thank you. Let's get a couple more. Yeah.
Just like power armor from like the Fallout series count. Like it's almost like a robot, but it's nothing like from Samus. It's like a jump-in kind of suit.
So the power armor from Fallout, similar, almost like Samus. You climb inside of it, but it's like what, 9-10 feet tall. It's not 2-3 stories tall. Again, power armor versus, you know, mecha, the pilotable robots. Great. Listen, you want to write? You can both write the essay. I do not discriminate against essay writers. You can both do the same essay. I will compare and contrast your essays. Yes, you had a suggestion.
So it's definitely just a play off of the Voltron Power Rangers, but the I think it was 5 ferrets in Rick and Morty.
Oh.
They're 5 ferrets that come together and make this giant mecha. There's like rainbow. I'll remember, it's been a while since I've seen it. But it's just so ridiculous that it makes me laugh every time.
I don't like the way he's looking at you.
Look at you.
Do we have Rick and Morty watchers in here? All right. I dare the rest of you to go, one, watch a couple episodes of Rick and Morty to familiarize yourself with the material, and then watch the 5 ferret episode. All right?
I already watched
And you'll see why I'm gazing like this.
I
Thank you
watched
for
a lot of
that.
stuff with the mecha. So it's that one or something else which is arguably not. So that's the one that I have.
5 ferrets.
The 5 ferrets. This is the one.
We will put it reluctantly on the list.
It can be at the very bottom.
At the bottom.
It's there.
It's on the back side of the list.
It
All
doesn't
right?
matter. It's there.
Yes.
So I remembered another one. In
Yes.
the new Godzilla movie, they make like a giant robot Godzilla.
Mechagodzilla.
Yes.
Is it palatable, or does it
No.
or does it operate on its own,
It operates.
Or is it like power
or is it remote control?
It is remote
Yeah, it's remote control.
It's remote control. Does remote control piloting count?
No.
No.
Didn't I already give you an assignment? No, I gave you an assignment. Okay, all right. Does pilotable, remote controlled mecha count, compare and contrast against Voltron, and tell me what the difference and what the similarities between the two giant robot systems are? Can you do that?
Well, first of all, Voltron, the lions are sentient.
The lions are sentient. Now we're getting into listen, we do not have time to break that down. You still have to turn it in though. This is fourth grade. One more. Did I see one more hand? Desmond, you got one?
Yeah. In Sonic 2, there's like Dr. X makes like this giant.
The giant egg robot.
Yeah, the giant egg.
From the newest movie? I know I've seen it in the video game, I've seen it in the cartoons, but in the newest movie he has the Dr. Is it Robotnik, right? Dr. Robotnik constructs a giant egg-shaped mustache robot that is pilotable, that he does sit in, correct?
Missiles shoot out his mustache.
Missiles shoot out of his mustache. Take that. All right. How's that for? Oh, man, I'm gonna grow this up. You didn't tell me. I'm gonna stop shaving. Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so language arts teacher here, and you've been assigning a lot of 2-page, double-page essays,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
And I don't know. This seems like a pretty receptive class. My class is maybe not so receptive to the double-sided essay. So I'm wondering, what would you say to the middle school writer that would be like inspiring about the writing process or about writing this double-spaced 2-page essay?
Let me jump into the technical details. Let me wade in there real quick, right? Why, could anyone guess why I would assign a 2-page double-spaced paper? What is that equivalent to?
Because our ideas are either words to write about or just straight up.
You know what? I am glad that you would give me that, that you would believe that I believe that your ideas are worth. Like I am gracious that you've given me that grace. I was not thinking that at all. However, I am going to add that into my rationale now. No, what for me, as someone who loves to write but hated to write about things I did not want to write about, right? You have to trick your brain. 2 pages double-spaced is 1 page single-spaced, right?
Wait, what?
2 pages. Yeah, listen, I am blowing. Listen, I've got to talk to me after.
That's the classic 5.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
2 pages double-spaced is 1 page single-spaced, right?
Yep.
So if you're talking to your students and you show them this, it's one way to easily trick them because they're like, oh man, I'm only wait a minute, double space at the end, I'm almost there, right? The other thing it's the same thing with reluctant reading that I talk about with reluctant writing, right? I turn the question back onto the teacher or the assigner of homework, right? What are you having them write about? You know what I mean? Like if the point of the lesson is to teach, compare, and contrast, how can we integrate subjects that they are passionate about that they can then compare and contrast? If I told, I was at a summer camp last Thursday, and if I told them to compare and contrast, just to sit there and tell me the differences and the similarities between Fortnite and Apex Legends, I would still be there. I would still be there, right? And so for me, it's less about, we're here to teach the fundamentals, right? The mechanics, right? But the subject matter, we should be more fluid with to allow them to, not distract them, sort of distract them, but to allow them to be passionate about what they're applying those fundamentals and mechanics to, right? So I always, somebody was like, hey, do you have any books? They were like, do you have any books that my boys would like to read? And I asked them, what do your boys like, right? Oh, I got one kid that likes Great British Bake Off, and I got one kid that loves Rambo. And I'm like, all right, okay, we can work with this. And that's then where we try and find and isolate and go on and go for it. So I would say, for me, teach them the fundamentals and the mechanics and the tricks. Give them a little wink, wink, nod, nod. Hey, double space at the end, and then, all of a sudden your workload is reduced or whatever, right? But also, let's figure out what we're writing about and see how we can tailor it. Because I promise you, they know and can compare and contrast. Because I have to listen to people tell me about why Jordan or LeBron or Jordan, Kobe is better all the time, right? If we can distill that into a writing assignment, I promise you'll get papers turned in early, not just on time. And then they will go do more, and then they'll attach supplementary materials in the form of trading cards and YouTube highlight clips that they have themselves put together. I'm very passionate about finding what other people are passionate about, because that's when you find the writers. That's when you really find the people that enjoy reading and writing. Find what they're passionate about and let that drive the assignment instead of letting the assignment drive them. You can see I get worked up about that.
To write a 5-page paragraph essay about
Five, yeah, and it's another thing. If you break it, when you break it down into chunks like that, all of a sudden it's more manageable. Oh yeah, it's a 5-paragraph essay, but your first paragraph is the introduction, your last paragraph, your paragraph is the conclusion where you're summarizing everything that you just said. So really, we're talking about 3 paragraphs. And if you break it down, each paragraph, has a summary topic, and then we have supporting topics, right? If you want to talk about LeBron versus Jordan, we can talk about championships, MVPs, and trips to the finals, right? That's 3 paragraphs right there, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, if I break it down like this, then assemble it at the end, I've got my assignment. It's not so hard, but it's that daunting assignment at the beginning where if we don't have the passion for it, we're like, all right, I guess I'll do it. Great, thank you for asking that question at the beginning so I can get my full rant out.
Before you assign any more essays.
Exactly. Now you know the trips. Any other questions? We've got 7 or 8 more minutes, so yes.
I would love to hear more about your Ethiopian connections in the book and what
Thank you for holding on to that question from the signing line and allowing me to expand upon it. So the book is co-written by Yoel McConan and I. Yoel is the great-grandson of the last Ethiopian emperor, Haile Selassie. And Yoel grew up in exile. Yoel did not grow up in Ethiopia. He grew up fleeing the violence and the overthrow of the imperial line in Ethiopia. He fled that with his mother, separate from other family members, bounced around school to school. So this story is a collaboration between Yoel and I about what that is. It's partly inspired by his life, thrust into the future, where the only African civilization to not be colonized, it was invaded, but it was not colonized, continue their dynasty into the future. I love to extrapolate that out and imagine what an Africa allowed to grow unmolested would be like, right? But also it goes a little bit deeper than that. I was talking to you about the different languages that we use in book 2. So the official language, for like bureaucratic purposes of Ethiopia is Amharic. And in book 1, that is a lot of the words, a lot of the Ethiopian terminology that you see there comes from the Amharic language. Amharic is not the only language that is spoken in Ethiopia. And so, as I said earlier, we thought it was important to, again, bring other cultures within Ethiopia because it's so easy to think of everything as a monolith, right? Whether we're talking about Ethiopia, whether we're talking about barbecue, whether we're talking about bookstores, right? What books do bookstores carry? It's so easy to just say, oh, they carry books. Oh, it's just the barbecue sauce that you put on it. Oh, Ethiopia, it's just the Amharic people and language. When it is so much granular and so much more disparate than that, they unite. It's not one solid blanket. It's just like a quilt that has come together to cover all of Ethiopia, right? So that's really where it comes from. And from there, the way that we world build is we just dive in, right? I find the Ethiopian restaurants. I travel there copious amounts of times, spend hours there. I actually gave, I think it's Awazi, I think is the restaurant in Raleigh, I want to say, near State's campus.
Oh yeah, it used to be called Abyssinia, but I think they changed names.
Yes. Yeah. Went there, gave them a copy of the book. They gave me some busas. It was a bartering system that I highly encourage everyone here to emulate. But yeah, it's really about that immersion. It's about decentering myself from the story and finding the stories, coupling them with Yoel's story, and then just letting Yard's adventure shine through. Thank you, great question. Anyone else? It is 6:56. Okay, all right.
Kim Stanley Robinson.
Yes.
Mars
Yes.
series. How were you influenced by that? Because I've noticed, like in your work, there seems to be, you know, a lot of wrestling with the impact of colonization, both historically and in real time. Just kind of remind me of some of the issues that were raised.
Humanity has this. We're going to get really.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. I'm going to get really deep here. But no, we as a people have this really horrible mentality where we say we are the most important things and things revolve around us, right? You see it with the environment, with climate, with, you know, you have a new sibling and you're stealing their gummies for snacks, right? I see the two of you look at each other. You know exactly what I'm talking about. But that we have this tendency, and so I love to interrogate that, right? In situations where everything is already hostile against us, or in the case of The Last Gate of the Emperor and the Royal Trials, we have a civilization, an advanced civilization that all of a sudden vanished, right? And then all of a sudden reappeared, right? We have two like cosmic events to grapple with, and how, like, can you just imagine, like, the civilization that gave you hoverboards, or in our case, cars, cell phones, you know, imagine that technology all of a sudden just stopped or even regressed, right? And we have to deal with that. And then decades later, that civilization returns and they're like, hey, we're back at the top again. You know, we're here. Sorry we left you, kids. And now you have to grapple with that again after dealing with them being gone for so long. So for me, it's less, you actually see those things a lot, which is one of the reasons why I really, really, really love sci-fi. As you really see those questions posed a lot, like what is our place in the universe? How do we impact as we expand throughout the galaxy? Can we expand the way that we have expanded across the Earth? Can we repeat the same mistakes that we made while we were here? And if we run into other civilizations, you know, alien civilizations, what is that first contact like, and how do we move on from there? Is it, you know, amicable? Are we friendly? Are we enemies? Are we ambivalent? I love sci-fi because you get to solve the problems of today and pose grander scale problems of tomorrow and answer them. If you read my book, there is no, if you read Last Gate of the Emperor or the Royal Trials, there's no bigotry, there's no sexism, there's no racism, there's none of that. Because in my mind, in the book, it's taken a couple of millennia, but we've solved it. We're past that. Now we're grappling with the more serious questions like, how do I breathe in space? Things that we can finally apply our great big brains to, right? And so I love sci-fi because we get to address those big questions, those big theoretical things that we don't exactly have the answers to. Mine is just one variant of what could, something that Desmond or Jack or Henry or anyone else in here in attendance, they might have a completely different answer as to how we deal with that question. That's really the beauty of sci-fi, and it's why we have so many variants of giant pilotable robots. See how I tied that all back around? It is 7 o'clock on the dot. I have fulfilled my duty. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.